Today was another day marked by the intense confrontation between the Israeli Defense Forces and active members of Hamas. The Israeli Defense Forces moved quickly, countering efforts by Hamas militants to stop their advance, which were unsuccessful. At the end of the day, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, issued forceful statements highlighting that in the Middle East, the only successful forces are the Israeli ones. Netanyahu communicated to the Israeli public a significant achievement of the army in recent hours. During his late-night speech, Jaron Finkelman, commander in the south of the Israel Defense Forces, stated that Israeli troops had hit the core of Hamas. Finkelman highlighted that for the first time in years, the Israeli armed forces fought in the epicenter of Gaza City, the very heart of the insurgent group. The Israeli army's offensive operations have resulted in the destruction of more than 120 Hamas targets in just 24 hours, he reported. An official Israeli statement mentioned Hamas's takeover of a key strategic outpost in West Jabalia, the Palestinian group's military stronghold north of Gaza. Israeli authorities say they are eliminating a daily average of more than 300 targets linked to Hamas. Finkelman emphasized the complexity and harshness of the battle between Israeli soldiers and Hamas members, acknowledging the regrettable costs that this confrontation entails. Shortly after Finkelman's announcement, Prime Minister Netanyahu shared news of great relevance and satisfaction to the citizens of Israel. According to Hagar, spokesperson for the Israel Defense Forces, the Israeli army has hit more than 14,000 targets in the Gaza Strip, destroying more than 100 tunnel entrances and seizing 4,000 weapons, including rockets hidden in civilian infrastructure. To secure an advantageous position in the tunnels, Israel needs to identify as many entrances as possible in a system estimated to reach up to 310 miles. It has long been assumed to number in the tens of thousands, most of which are hidden inside residential buildings, garages, industrial facilities, warehouses, beneath garbage and debris dumps. After more than a month of intense bombing, Israel has been preparing to tackle the complex tunnels used since the Gaza offensive in 2014. This has involved constant surveillance using drones that use highly sophisticated software to analyze movements and recognize individuals, combining this data with known databases of Hamas members. Through this system, hundreds or even thousands of known accesses have been located. However, even if all the identified entrances are attacked, this does not completely disable the tunnels for Hamas, as most have multiple entrances at both ends, some of which remain operational at all times. Hamas, as the builder of these underground passages, has a considerable advantage in knowing the network intimately. Although Israeli software can provide clues linking movement patterns, it does not reveal underground routes, directions, or intersections. Mapping these tunnels involves facing considerable dangers and challenges, regardless of the precision of the commands. The first challenge is technical. GPS devices are useless since their satellite signals do not cross the Earth. The solution is likely to require devices that combine magnetic sensors, not affected by the underground layer, with motion sensors used in odometers. A rudimentary and imprecise system, but better than no method at all. Netanyahu stressed that despite the painful casualties, the overall success has been extraordinary. Furthermore, he mentioned that the Israeli army is advancing in the south with a force never seen before by Hamas and has surrounded Gaza City. However, he stressed that the operations seek to exert constant pressure on Hamas, deepening day by day and hour by hour. The Israeli leader also reported that thousands of militants, including those responsible for the Gaza flood attacks on October 7th, have been neutralized, both above and below ground. Likewise, he highlighted that the ground operation has destroyed numerous Hamas command centers, positions, and tunnels. He claimed that even Hamas could not foresee the magnitude of the Israeli offensive. Members of the Negev Brigade, based in the town of Beit in northern Gaza, have played a vital role in these events. Brigadier Colonel Ibri Elbas described the tunnels as a kind of underground metropolis. He expressed, "The tunnels were a kind of city beneath the city. The Hamas terrorists moved agilely, shooting like rats running through those passages. Our mission is to disrupt their ability to launch and fire missiles aimed at innocent civilians." So far, at least 17 tunnels have been located in a small area, some of considerable length, either connected to a broader network further south in Gaza City or with direct routes to Israel. Elbas stressed that his soldiers are citizens committed to a moral code, despite constant calls for a ceasefire from aid organizations and even accusations of alleged war crimes by Israel. Meanwhile, according to the latest data from the Palestinian Ministry of Health, at least 10,000 Palestinians have lost their lives in Israeli attacks on Gaza since October 7th. More than 26,000 were injured. New figures provided by the United States on casualties in Gaza have raised alarm. Barbara Leaf, Undersecretary of State for Near Eastern Affairs in the Biden administration, mentioned that the number of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip is likely much higher than the 10,000 reported by the Ministry of Health. During the conflict between Israel and Hamas, Israeli leaders, including U.S. President Joe Biden, have dismissed as exaggerated figures, citing more than 10,000 deaths in Gaza to date. Netanyahu reported that he spoke with the head of the Red Cross about the hostages detained in Gaza, urging him to work for their immediate release, following the regulations of international law. Furthermore, he insisted that the Red Cross visit all the hostages to ensure their well-being, reaffirming compliance with the provisions of international law. There will be no truce without the return of our hostages, Netanyahu stressed as he conveyed this message to our adversaries and allies alike. Netanyahu's statements offer a vision of the current state of the conflict and suggest the strategy to be followed by the Israeli government in the coming days. In this context, it is observed that as long as Hamas maintains control in the Gaza Strip, tensions will persist. Both the Israeli Defense Forces and the government are showing extreme caution in relation to the hostages, being extremely careful to ensure their safety in the middle of the battlefront. With the current focus on Hamas's offensive strategy, prolonged fighting in the Gaza Strip is expected. Although Hamas militants do not directly confront the Israeli Defense Forces, they plan ambushes and attacks against the Israeli army using the tunnels. Israeli forces obtaining detailed information about Hamas's tunnel network reduces the likelihood of being ambushed. These are the general conclusions drawn from the course of the conflict and Netanyahu's statements. We appreciate his attention to this analysis.